Hello, all. We're going to look at this previous 30 marker for methods. You have about 53 minutes in the exam to write it. So with this, you have to do the stages. So you have to do old ladies might eat sugar, plum, crumble anytime. So to remind you, operationalize, literature review, method, ethics, sample, pilot, collect, and then analyze the data. So this question says, as an A-level sociology student, it will always say that, but you've been asked to design a research project to collect data on the amount of regular exercise taken amongst a sample of elderly people in your local area. So we have to operationalize elderly. So what age range do we consider elderly? And exercise. Each stage of your research design, which is those stages, and any problems. So we have to come back to those Grover terms as strengths and weaknesses. So I'm going to show you the paragraphs. So the first thing I'm going to do is operationalize. First thing I'm going to do is operationalize the terms elderly as 70 plus. First thing I'm going to do is operationalize the term elderly as 70 plus and regular exercise as and do regular as 2 to 3 times a week and exercise as any physical activity. So walking, swimming, cycling, etc. So operationalizing these terms makes them measurable and easy to understand. Operationalizing these terms makes it measurable and easy to understand by using objective indicators. Makes it objective and easy, or makes it easy to understand by using objective indicators. It means there is less researcher bias, or there's less bias or opinions, as both the researcher and the respondent share the same understanding. So it's much more, there's less bias or opinions as both the researcher and respondent share the same understanding. This increases the validity. It's more truthful or accurate. Because you've got the same understanding, it's much more truthful or accurate. However, operationalizing elderly as 70 reduces the sample size. It reduces the sample size or group, making it less representative. It can't account for key differences based on gender, ethnicity, or social class. So making it less representative. So it can't account for key differences based on gender, ethnicity, or social class. So it's therefore not as generalizable. So we can't apply results or make a claim. So first thing I'm going to do is operationalize the terms. Operationalizing means that we make the terms measurable, we make it easy to understand using these objective indicators. It means there's less bias or researcher's opinion, as the researcher and respondent share the same understanding. So this increases the validity. It's more truthful or accurate. But operationalizing elderly is 70 reduces the sample size, makes it less representative, told the meaning, and we can't generalize or apply the results. The next thing I will do is conduct a literature review or a large scale review of secondary sources. Next thing I'm going to do is a large scale review of secondary sources on elderly people. Check what the question is, of elderly people and regular exercise. This means I can ask more informed questions. So I can ask more informed questions as I have a better understanding. So it means, I'm going to put it the other way. This means I have a better understanding of the topic and can ask more informed questions. It means I have a better understanding of the topic and can ask more informed questions. However, literature reviews are time consuming. And as an A-level student, my time is limited. There's also a cost. There's also a cost to access academic journals. There's also a cost to access academic journals. And as an A-level student, I don't have access to paid subscriptions. I don't have access to these academic articles. So the cost to access academic journals, and they should have access these academic journals. And with the literature review, I might develop bias or an opinion, meaning the research becomes subjective. So I might develop a bias or opinion, meaning the research becomes subjective, which could decrease the validity or truthfulness of my conclusions. So you just spent all this time reading the reason from these academic research, you can develop a bias or opinion. Okay, for my method, I will take a positivist approach and seek to establish patterns and trends, and take a macro or large scale approach. So for my method, I'm going to go positivist. It doesn't tell me what to do, So I'm going to go take a positivist approach, seek to establish patterns and trends, and take a macro or large scale approach. And use a quantitative to numerical to expressed in numerical statistical form. I'm going to use a quantitative method, so expressed in numerical statistical form, and conduct. I'm going to do a structured interview. So I'm going to do a quantitative and conduct a structured interview. So this is because I'm going to do a structured interview with paper copies for the respondents to read. So I'm going to do a structured interview with paper copies for respondents to read with large font. This is because the elderly respondents may struggle to hear the questions. So they might struggle to hear the questions or read a self-completion questionnaire due to eyesight and needing glasses that they may not have with them. They're elderly, so we can't just give them a self-completion questionnaire and expect them to be able to read it if they need reading glasses that are at home. And we also can't expect them to be able to hear everything if they've got, for example, like a hearing impairment. We need to give them context, and when they're elderly with this, they need greater explaining about why you've made those choices. So the structured interview has closed questions. So the structured interview has closed questions. These are quick to complete. Structured interview has closed questions. These are quick to complete. And increases the sample size. Closed questions are quick to complete, and it increases the sample size. This means the research can be more representative. It can account for key differences based on gender, ethnicity, and social class. So it's a larger sample because it's quick. Means it can account for key differences based on gender, ethnicity, and social class. And therefore, I can apply results or make a claim about elderly groups and exercise. I can make a claim about elderly groups in general and their exercise. The closed questions also means respondents will have to approximate their answers. Closed questions also mean respondents have to approximate their answers. They are likely to give the same or similar answers. This increases the reliability. Okay. However, the closed questions means respondents cannot explore the topic in their own words. However, the closed questions mean respondents can't explore the topic in their own words. This decreases the validity. This decreases the validity. There is no rapport or relationship. So there's no, wow, it's an interview. So do we build a rapport or a relationship? Maybe we'll come back to that. So this decreases the validity. There may also be an issue of an interviewer effect. There might also be an issue of an interview effect where my characteristics, so my gender or ethnicity, may have an impact and therefore reduce. So they may have an impact and therefore reduce validity due to socially desirable answers. So they might give more socially desirable answers because of my characteristics. This might be an interviewer effect. So I've got Grover, got reliability, rep gen, and validity. Okay. Suppose could do objectivity as a strength. So quick to complete. So structured interviews with structured interviews, I'm more likely to remain objective. I'm more likely to remain objective, also free from bias, as I will not build a rapport or relationship with respondents. So I can pop that in the strength, copy and paste that in. Okay, that's method. So ethics. So I will produce a statement of intent outlining the research. So we'll produce a statement of intent outlining the research and how the results will be used. Outline the research and how the results will be used. This ensures fully informed consent. So it ensures fully informed consent and that respondents, I said fully informed consent, I'm going to stop there. I will keep all the respondents' names anonymous. I will ensure anonymity. So no names are used. I will ensure anonymity. So no names are used. And no personal details. So confidentiality. This adheres to the British Sociological Association's guidelines. Adheres to the British Sociological Association's guidelines and increases the validity as respondents know their identities are kept hidden. Respondents know their identities are kept hidden, so are more likely to tell the truth. Okay, that's all my strengths. However, I will give the respondents the right to withdraw. I will give the respondents the right to withdraw. I will provide them with a unique number and write this down for them. We'll provide them with a unique number and write this down for them. And provide my college email address with the option to withdraw from the study. This can decrease my sample size. This can decrease my sample size, my group, and therefore the ability to generalize, or therefore the ability to represent different elderly groups, and therefore apply the results to this target population. If I let them leave, then they're more likely to reduce the sample size, and I can't represent all the different elderly groups and then apply results or make that claim. Okay, sample. So to gain access to elderly groups, I would ideally have access to a sampling frame, so a list, and stratify the sample. Ideally, I'd have access to a sampling frame or a list, and I'd stratify the sample. I'd subdivide into groups. However, elderly people can be vulnerable, and organisations will not allow access to personal details. So ideally, that's what I would do, but no one's going to allow that to happen. So I will do an opportunity sample. I will do an opportunity sample. I will access anyone who is willing and available to take part. I will approach groups at bingo halls. Sorry to be stereotypical here. Bingo halls, local libraries, community centres, and ask doctors' surgeries who will act as gatekeeper, and I will ask doctors' surgeries who act as a gatekeeper if they could have an advert outlining the research. If they can have an advert outlining the research with paper self-completion questionnaires. I was thinking I could ask them to advert to do a structured interview, but I don't think that would work. But I could ask them to advert outline the research with paper self-completion questionnaires if anyone would be willing to complete whilst they wait for appointments. So I'm going to do structured interviews, but also self-completion questionnaires. Just thinking, self-completion questionnaires. This means I can access larger samples. So it means I can access larger samples. However, the sampling methods are not representative. They're not representative. But as an A-level student, I have limited access to this target population. I'm just thinking then, method I'll take a positivist approach, so conduct structured interviews and I think self-completion questionnaires. I'm going to adapt it, and self-completion questionnaires with paper copies for respondent. So with the structured interview, so self-completion questionnaire, structured interview and self-completion questionnaires with paper copies, respondents to read with large formats. So with the structured interview, I will provide paper copies for respondents to read. So I'll provide paper copies, sorry about this folks, for respondents to read. This is because elderly may struggle to read the questions or read self-completion questionnaires. They might not have them. I will ensure everything is printed with large font. So structured interviews. Yeah, I think it's perfect. Okay, right. Done my sample. I was just thinking that a doctor's surgery, the chances of them letting you do a structured interview there is going to be really quite limited. So we're going to try and do structured interviews as an opportunity sample, but also self-completion if they would rather. So opportunity sample, doctor surgery, they would not gain access to this group or ideally have access to a sampling frame, stratify the sample, allow access to personal details. Who's willing to take part, which is bingo halls, local libraries, community centres, and ask doctor surgeries they could outline the research paper, self-completion question, if anyone willing, whilst they wait for appointments. I will offer either a structured interview or self-completion questionnaire, depending on the respondents at the time. I'm just thinking, if you're in a supermarket, they might not want to do a structured interview in the supermarket. They might just want to do the quick self-completion questionnaire. Okay, that's the sample. Old ladies might eat sugar plum. So I will conduct a pilot study or a mini version of my research. I will conduct a pilot study or a mini version of my research on my sociology class sociology teacher. This is to ensure all the questions make sense and are easy to understand. It ensures that the respondents, which all the questions make sense and are easy to understand. This increases the validity of the research. There's no or limited, so there's no misinterpretation. However, pilot studies are time consuming, and I won't be able to use the data in the research, as the sample is not of elderly groups. It's on 16-year-olds. So, last two, I will collect the data at supermarkets, leisure centres, bingo halls. So I will collect the data at supermarkets via either a structured interview or self-completion questionnaire if respondents would prefer. I would ask local doctors' surgeries if I could leave paper copies and a box each questionnaire would have a statement of intent and a box to leave and a sealed box. And a sealed box to leave completed questionnaires in. However, I might not gain access to doctors' surgeries, and all of these sampling methods have very low response rates. And all of these sampling methods have really low response rates and are time consuming, which can decrease both rep and gen. Paper copies are time consuming to analyse. Paper copies of the questionnaires are time consuming to analyse, but the structured interviews, I would use Google Forms, as this is quick. So I'd use Google Forms. I'm going to put using my phone as a hotspot to get internet. I'm going to use my phone as a hotspot to get internet. And these are quick to analyse results, as they can produce graphs easily and efficiently. However, I may have developed subjective opinions due to the literature review. I might have developed subjective opinions due to the literature review. This means my results may lack validity and might not be as accurate or truthful. Okay, so this one, just to clarify, is a really, really hard 35 marker because it's really difficult to be able to gain access to this group of people, just so you know. So as always, any questions, let me know. It still follows the generic strengths and weaknesses that you've got in your grid, but it's important that you keep seeing different versions of this question so you're really well prepared. Thank you.